The Ice Age started more than 2 million years ago. Here in Indiana, it ended about 11,000 years ago. But when we say Ice Age, what does that mean? How cold was it? What evidence do we have to help us better understand what it was like then? Let's find out. During the Ice Age, the temperature fluctuated here in Indiana, but up north it stayed really cold. The snow in Canada piled up and didn't melt fast enough to disappear each year. Over time, the layers of snow compacted into dense sheets of ice and started to move south. How fast a glacier moved depended on a lot of factors, such as time of year, location, and if it was moving over land or water. It is believed it moved about a foot a day in Indiana. This rock represents the glacier. It takes a lot of force to move it, and you can see that force is eroding the base or ground. The movement of the glacier eroded the land and moved rock, sediment, sand, and clay along its path. This erosion of the land and rock deposits is one way we know the path of the different glaciers. We find metamorphic and igneous rocks in Indiana that were brought in from the north. Our state's metamorphic and igneous rocks are too far down to come up to the Earth's surface. We are going to check in with Ron Richards, Senior Research Curator of Paleobiology, to explain more about the how and why behind what we know about the Ice Age in Indiana.
We had these immense ice sheets that spanned all across much of the state of Indiana. And these things were from a half mile to even a mile thick. Cold winds roared down from above, and from below the ice tunnels below, cold meltwaters gushed out. For a lot of the time, there could have been large proglacial lakes and marshes that formed right near the ice. On a lucky day, you might even see a small herd of mammoths near the edge of the ice, probably some reindeer, some caribou. But south of the ice, a couple miles, you're probably going to have some big development of forest, like spruce and fir and pine. You're going to have a lot of diversity of wildlife, including a lot of things that are now extinct, like mastodons, giant ground sloths, giant beaver, stag moose, and then some small little animals like Arctic shrew and yellow-cheeked vole, which live way up to the north today. By studying the sediments, we have all these different features across Indiana. But we also have bogs and lake sediments that have bones in them, so we can tell a lot about the life then. But we can also tie a lot of these glacial events into the bigger world picture by looking at deep sea cores, where they study the oxygen isotopes from small little animals, microscopic foraminifera, and they can deduce the warm phases and the cold phases, so we can lock this in to bigger events. First thing you recognize is that a lot of the animals are very warm climate animals, like giant land tortoise, which we don't get in cool environments, like jaguar, which is a southern animal. But there are also some ancient paleosols. These are soils that have been eroded very deeply, so you can recognize these things. So these are sort of the evidence that you use for recognizing interglacial periods. During the Interglacial Period, we had a lot of open grasslands in Indiana because it was drier and it's warmer. But there were patches of other trees like oak and hickory, things that we've got down here today. The most visible impact of glaciation in Indiana is that in northern and central Indiana, it had been bulldozed down by the ice and it's really been flattened. However, even during the last 3 big glaciation events, it never reached southern Indiana, south central Indiana, so the hills have survived. Also, all the glaciation is responsible for developing most of the lakes in northern Indiana, our present river and stream conduits, the channels, and it also developed pretty rich agricultural soils in certain parts of Indiana. The groundwater table, which was in a glacial area, was the reservoir source for drinking water, and all the wells that went in were pulling from that. For me, the legacy of the Ice Age is that it's preserved many fine bone deposits with mastodons and other animals, and we can use these to understand the life and environments of the Ice Age. Well, Indiana folklore says that a bog in Indiana that's larger than an acre should probably contain the remains of at least one mastodon. Even as a kid collecting fossils at 10 years old, I came to recognize there were a lot of very big boulders. I came eventually to understand that these were large granite boulders that were dragged all the way down from Canada by the glaciers and left on our Indiana landscape.
Thanks, Ron. I encourage you to think about where you live. Make your own observations of the current landscape and consider how it would have looked if glaciers were never there. The Ice Age left quite an impression on the state of Indiana.